Well, hello, hello. Welcome back to this weekly webinar. I'm Laura Golbin, and I am the dietitian who works with Premier Weight Loss. And this week, the topic is actually on something very specific to them, which is a guide to the supplements at Premier Weight Loss and some potential benefits that they have. As always, if you have any questions at the end or during this presentation, please don't hesitate to hit the bottom left hand of your screen with the Q&A. You can feel free to ask anonymously, or you can let your name be there and I'll be happy to address you by name at that time. So let's get started. So what we'll cover today will be a quick recap over when and why supplementation may be needed, the categories of specific supplements that are offered, and also a few notes that I have on a couple of the supplements here and there, as well as any questions that you may have regarding this or any other nutrition-related questions there are. I should mention that while you may be familiar with the Premier weight loss Premier weight loss protein powders that tend to be very popular, we're not going to touch on those necessarily, but these are going to be on some more niche type supplements. I do want to make a quick note that during this discussion, I'm not promoting any specific brand or product here. I just want to use this opportunity to provide education to you on what you may see in their office and offer you some further information on what their claimed intent is for these supplements. Some of them may seem unfamiliar, or you may just wonder if you happen to receive the catalog. I know that they have a catalog of some of their supplements. You may be wondering what purpose might they serve beyond what might be in the list for you. But regardless if you buy supplements through Premier Weight Loss or at a grocery store or anywhere else, always ask your provider before starting any nutrition supplement, maybe whether or not it's required or needed, or if there may be some potential medication interactions. So it's always valuable to ask your provider. Another note I'll mention is that I did do a cursory look over the brands that are offered at Premier Weight Loss, just to make sure that there were no recent recalls or any recent warning letters through the FDA about these supplements specifically. I did not find any as of this time, and so I wanted to mention that as well. Now, you may wonder, why would I need a supplement? What would be the potential reasons that you would need something like this? And can be for a variety of reasons. One is the general health maintenance, health prevention. Some people feel better if they go before they get on an airplane to take Emergen-C or something like that. So that may be them wanting to maintain their health, not get sick. It can also be a useful tool to address nutrient deficiencies, which can occur from malabsorptive conditions, if you may have a bariatric surgery history. I mentioned here lack of dietary variety, which can occur also if your calorie intake is low. Variety can be a little bit limited if the appetite is lower or if you're just not able to eat as much during the day. Also, in obesity, in people who have obesity, there is more evidence of deficiency or inadequate intake, and that's more frequently found in populations that have obesity, specifically with vitamins A, E, C, and D, as well as the B vitamins and some minerals such as iron, zinc, calcium, and magnesium. That's not for everyone, of course, but it does seem to occur with a little more frequency. All right, so what types of supplements are offered at Premier Weight Loss. Beyond the protein powder supplements that we all know and are very familiar with, there are more that are offered, and I know that it's listed in the catalog, divided into 4 main categories. There's the digestive health, hair health, general health, as well as muscle health or muscle maintenance would be another way. I did notice while going through the catalog and reviewing some of these products that some of them fit, they might be in one category, but they may also fit into other categories as well, such as the collagen for hair health and muscle health can combine. I did also list one in a slightly different spot than what it would be listed in your catalog, as I felt it was just more applicable in that way based on what I happen to read, but just so you're aware, they do tend to cross lines here and there. So it's okay if it's not listed under a specific area, that it might apply for a different category as well. So firstly, under the digestive health category, there's one called Digestive Enzymes Ultra that is made and sold by would be more accurate here, Pure Encapsulations. They're generally a well-regarded brand. And this one contains enzymes that may be helpful if you have trouble digesting certain foods. So a real world example that you can imagine is that pineapple. If you know that fresh pineapple, if you've ever tried to make Jell-O, they say do not use fresh pineapple when you're making Jell-O. And the reason why is because fresh pineapple contains a natural enzyme that actually helps pre-digest proteins. And so your gelatin will never set because it has actually digested the protein in the gelatin, which is why you have to use canned pineapple where that enzyme has been deactivated. So you can see that enzymes do help break things down. And so this Digestive Enzymes Ultra has quite a few enzymes in it that are geared toward carbohydrates, protein, fiber, etc., depending on the type. Also, one that was listed here was magnesium glycinate by Metagenics. So I have the companies listed for each one. This form of magnesium, the glycinate, because there are many different types of forms that you'll see sold. A very common one is the magnesium oxide or oxalate. You'll see this glycinate is generally well absorbed, and it's less likely to have a strong laxative effect compared to the other forms of magnesium you might find. So that can be a relief to some people. You see this is under digestive health, so it can still help keep things moving, but may not have quite the strong reaction that you aren't looking for, really. Now, I was reading about this as well. So magnesium is often promoted to help relieve muscle cramps. And what I found interesting, because I know many people use it, swear by it, there is actually limited evidence to support this. However, when there's anecdotal evidence, or if you have felt a difference, then that still is a valid thing. And so I wanted to mention that some people will report anecdotal evidence. I can't say it's scientifically backed necessarily, but if it works for you, it's not too high of a dose, by all means. Some other digestive health products out there. There's one called Ultra GI Replenish, also by Metagenics. This one was interesting because I didn't initially see it when I saw the product, but then I was reading more about it, and it's described as a medical food. So be aware it does contain 140 calories per serving. It has protein, carbs, fiber, also a vitamin blend. So this aim is to address gut health. It may also help with some issues for, say, absorbing nutrients as well. In a way, it's almost like, I wouldn't want to call it a meal replacement, but it does have food in it. And I would recommend, because it does have additional vitamins in it, that you might want to avoid taking a multivitamin if you're using the Ultra GI Replenish. It doesn't mean you have to use the Ultra GI Replenish constantly in perpetuity, but just be aware if you choose to use it and while you use it, I would probably avoid taking other multivitamins while you're using it. Moving on, Body Health sells a product that is very basically named probiotic. I think the full name is Probiotic by Body Health. And this one contains 11 different probiotic strains along with amino acids. They do make an amino acid blend, and so they include that in here. And looking up those probiotic strains that they have listed, they did select strains that are geared toward helping with gut health. And there are also ones that help create short chain fatty acids, which can help with metabolism as well as gut barrier health. Moving on to the next category of hair health. So I know that I've done a couple presentations on hair loss, since that is a common concern and it can be multifactorial, and figuring out the exact cause for a person's hair loss can also be like trying to find a needle in a haystack sometimes. But there are a few things here listed that may have some benefits depending on what your needs are. The first one is called Mary Ruth's Multivitamin Plus Hair Growth by Mary Ruth Organics. This one is a liquid multivitamin, which for some people that may actually be preferable to taking a pill, for example. So that can have some appeal. It includes also a proprietary blend that includes horsetail extract, which is a plant, thankfully not actual horsetail. And I noticed that that extract is used in other hair loss supplements. This is another situation where I have not read a whole lot of hard facts regarding this, but there were some anecdotal reports by other people saying how they felt that horsetail extract was helping them. Again, since this is a multivitamin type of blend, I would recommend that you avoid taking this with other multivitamins. And also, the biotin content in this one is quite high, which in itself is not necessarily dangerous, but definitely let your provider know, because it can interfere with the results of some lab tests, such as thyroid function tests. So you might get a false result if you're taking that. Moving on to collagen peptides by Vital Proteins. This might be one of the most popular peptide products I've seen out there. Many people who I talk with are taking Vital Proteins brand. It's in usually a blue container. People will add it to their coffee. They say it tastes good. And interestingly enough, there was one study, it was a small study, but they showed some increase in hair density when using collagen. Also, collagen is often taken for joint health, as well as potentially skin benefits. So there could be lots of reasons that people might choose to take this. Moving on to general health, I know that this product here was listed under health or hair health, but this one I sort of included as more general. This is by Designs for Health. And so colostroms is an interesting product because I have seen it increase in popularity, although nailing down the exact reason that some people take it, it varies depending on the person or what they might be promoting it for. The amount of studies needed to necessarily get behind some of the product or some of the reasons they're promoting it still need more studies to definitively say that. But what it's promoted for right now is for gut health, possibly beneficial for athletic performance, and possibly beneficial, although not reported on as often, for hair health. In case you were unaware, colostrum is the milk created by mammals shortly after giving birth. And so this is bovine colostrum. The company in their literature was saying that they do wait until the calves do have the sufficient amount of colostrum before taking the remaining to use. I wanted to mention that. However, just for people to have general knowledge on this one, if you have an allergy to milk, it may go without saying, but you do want to avoid this product. It does contain milk products. Also, just be aware that many colostrum products contain small amounts of estrogens, and if you may have a sensitivity to that, please be aware. Some additional general health products. One is the vitamin D3 and K by Metagenics. This is a really interesting combination, which has increased in popularity lately. The combination of vitamin D and K may actually help with bone density, although this isn't fully clear. I did want to mention, though, that the European Food Safety Authority has actually approved a claim related to vitamin K and bone health. The FDA has not, which is why you may not see that listed, but over in Europe, they do promote vitamin D and K together and how vitamin K may help increase bone density and may sort of work synergistically with vitamin D. There's also greens. I know greens powders have also been something that has exploded in popularity. This one is by Body Health. When I was looking over the products, I did want to mention that it may contain caffeine. It does use matcha tea in it, and so just be aware of that if you're sensitive to caffeine. It also uses their amino acid blend, and they do also include an enzyme blend within it. So it does contain a few different blends that may mean that you don't necessarily need to use the other enzyme blend that we talked about earlier, et cetera, et cetera. But also be aware that the ingredients are fairly lengthy and you want to make sure that you read through them just to make sure that if you have any type of sensitivities to certain foods, to look through this first. Also, a product by, and I've never heard of this company actually until I was reading through this. I'm going to pronounce it the way I imagine it's pronounced, is Perk, which they are selling what's called activated B12. And so this form of B12 is hydroxycobalamin. So there are different forms of vitamin B12 that you'll find in different supplements. One very common one is cyanocobalamin. There's the hydroxycobalamin, methylcobalamin, on and on. Just be aware that this form, along with methylcobalamin, they are sensitive to light. So you want to make sure to keep this form of B12 safe in its container, which is opaque. So having it in one of those pill containers that is clear that you can see through, unless you're taking them immediately or you keep that somewhere away from light, I wouldn't recommend putting this type of B12 in that container. And onto this, I believe this is the final category here, muscle recovery and repair. Again, this is not touching on the protein powders, the whey powders. I've heard that the clear one that is at Premier Weight Loss is very popular, and I have actually tried a sample, and I would agree it tastes pretty good. This one, so these are on more specific types of muscle recovery and repair. The first one by Thorne is creatine. And creatine is often indicated for muscle recovery and also to prevent muscle soreness. Normally, it's not recommended to take more than 20 grams a day for any length of time. Most people don't go over 5 grams a day, but I did want to mention that. And there's some interest and some studies going on about whether or not it can help with cognition, which I think is pretty interesting. And then finally, there's Perfect Aminos by Body Health. This one, I have looked into this one before, and you may even, if you've been there when this question was posited to me initially, I think one of my very first presentations, I have looked into it. I do have a healthy skepticism. However, there are some anecdotal reports that indicate people are pleased with it. One person, I believe, I'm paraphrasing here, but one person has said that she swears by it. And I still want to mention that there are people who are very happy with it. It is promoted as a way to get in easily absorbed amino acids in small doses. So sometimes when people think that protein drinks are just a bit overwhelming, this is a way that is promoted to get it in a smaller amount so that the quantity isn't quite as overwhelming. And of course, essential amino acids can definitely help with muscle growth, and you do want to make sure that you're getting in enough protein amino acids to help preserve your muscle mass as well. So some ending notes. Be aware there are many supplement options out there, and there are many different brands. It's always good to look into the brands that you're investigating. Some are very well regarded. some maybe not so much. So it's always good to look at the brands and see what's going on there. And be aware that supplements may be beneficial depending on your current health needs. So it doesn't mean you need all of the supplements, but there may be some that you specifically may find some benefit from using. And always, always, always speak with your provider if you have any questions about any supplements, including the ones at Premier Weight Loss. I know that the providers are familiar with the products that they provide, and so they also would be more than happy to give you some insight on those products and discuss them with you further in case you are wondering if it's something you may need or want to look into further. And with that, I thank everyone for your time and your attendance. But is there any questions? Are there any concerns or anything I can answer for anyone? I'll leave this open, and in case you weren't here for my initial commentary, if you have a question, feel free to hit the bottom left hand of the screen. If I recall correctly, you can choose to be anonymous, or you can absolutely leave your name. I'll just be sure to most likely say your name out loud so you know that I'm addressing your question. So I'll leave this open for a few minutes if you do have any. And if you have questions that you'd like to ask offline, by all means, reach out to the Premier Weight Loss staff, and they're more than happy to get in touch with me. And I'd be happy to address your question in private as well. All right. Here's a question. Do you believe more in word of mouth support on supplements or what you read online? When friends swear by supplements, do you think that matters? Ooh, that's a thought-provoking one, and one that could get pretty philosophical pretty fast. So let's see if I can answer this one timely, but also thoroughly. So, as I mentioned before, when it comes to supplements, as a dietitian, I always approach with the idea of show me the research. But as a dietitian, I also know that because research is changing constantly, it's very important to have an open mind and that we don't know everything. We used to believe that fat was the enemy not too long ago. And now we understand there's a more nuanced approach. So we don't know everything, and so we have to keep an open mind that just because we don't see the proof now doesn't mean that there might not be something later on. So I do think that when there is word of mouth support, assuming there isn't a financially invested reason behind it, that while it may not be science, it's something that I sort of take note of and listen to. I also listen, especially if someone says they've had a bad experience with a supplement. So that doesn't mean I certainly wouldn't put my license, if you will, behind that necessarily, but I'm always happy to tell people what I know anecdotally, what I've heard anecdotally, to at least let people know what other experiences there have been out there. In terms of what I read online, that's a little different just because it depends on what we're reading. Are we reading reviews? Do we know if these reviews are legitimate, or are they bot created? Or are they reviews that are done by, say, dietitians or doctors who aren't selling them necessarily, because you always have to ask, who's selling it. But if it's somebody who's read more in depth into it, that's very valuable as well. So there's tiers to it. But first and foremost, whenever it comes to the supplements, what I always look in is what's the research, and then I look at, is this product in particular harmful? If I don't see any evidence of harm, if I don't see any evidence of found harm from any third-party testing, then I'm more willing to say if somebody wants to try it, they're welcome to. I hope that answered the question. I know it was a bit verbose. But thank you so much. Are there any other questions? I'll leave it open for just a few more minutes so that way everyone can get back to their day. You're on a rainy day too, if you're in Indiana. Very good. I don't see any other questions coming in. So I think we can wrap at this point, but if you have questions that come to mind later, please, by all means, reach out to the Premier Weight Loss staff. They will be happy to get in touch with me to help answer that question for you and be more than happy to address that in any depth, or if you even want me to look further into specific topic or item, I'm happy to do that. But as always, it was an absolute pleasure to have you join me today. And please, I hope to see you in the next one. Have a wonderful rest of the day.